I've been doing research on end-of-life experiences with animals. Shortly before they die, a lot of dogs, cats, horses, parrots, budgerigars and other animals behave in a very different way from the way they behave normally. And this is also the case with humans. I've just published a paper in the Journal of Scientific Exploration with the German researcher Michael Nahm, who's a world expert on end-of-life experiences in humans, and my assistant Pam Smart, with whom I've worked for many years. We collect stories from people, and we have a very large database. In that database, we have a lot of stories from people about their animals soon before they die. We've classified them into a number of different categories, which are as follows. The first is last goodbyes, where the animal comes to say goodbye to people, clearly saying goodbye. I'll give examples in a moment, but this is just to give an overview to start with. The second category is last visits, where animals that have been living away from their owner or the person they're very bonded to come and visit them just before they die, as if to say goodbye. Then there's the last rally, where dying animals have a sudden surge of energy just before they die. This is very similar to the last rally in humans. Then retreating into solitude, something humans can't often do when they're dying, but some animals say goodbye and then they go off to die alone in the woods or in a wild place. Then there's the premonitions of death, and the next category is terminal lucidity, when animals that have been almost unconscious or completely out of it become very clear just before they die. And this is something that's very parallel to terminal lucidity in humans, where people who've had Alzheimer's or dementia for many years sometimes recover their clarity just before they die. They know they're dying, they know who they are, they know who everyone else is, their memory comes back. They're completely lucid, and then they die. That's why it's called terminal lucidity. So these end-of-life experiences in humans are paralleled very strongly by end-of-life experiences with animals. Now let me give an example of a last goodbye. And here's a story about a dog called Foxy. This is the sad but true story of what our family experienced with our dog Foxy. We all loved the dog because it was so friendly, devoted and loyal, as very watchful and clever. When the dog became old, it could not hear so well anymore, ate less and became weak. Finally, at the age of 14, it could barely move from its resting place. Then one day, the following happened. The whole family sat at the dinner table, while the good dog struggled to its feet, went around from one to the next, sadly looked at everybody, and gave paws to each member of the family. Then it trudged back, slowly lay down and died. So we have many other examples of last goodbyes with dogs and cats. Here's an example with a cat. Baker, the cat, our son and daughter-in-law adopted, was sociable on his own terms and would appear for a while when we visited them and then disappear. Knowing we were family, he was affectionate with us, but briefly. The last time we saw him, as he was clearly dying, he came in as usual, but this time he made the rounds, sitting in each of our 4 laps for 15 minutes or so, and then moving to the next lap, as if clearly saying goodbye. When he died very soon afterwards, and I mentioned the incident, each of the 4 of us said that they had sensed the exact thing at the same time, that he was aware of his imminent death and he was saying goodbye. So this shows a clarity about knowing they're dying and a wish to say goodbye, and this is the commonest kind of experience we've found with end-of-life experience with animals. Last visits are more unusual because they depend on the animal living with somebody else. But here's an example. My friend G had a dog, Bobby, who was enticed by a neighbour, maybe even enchanted, to move away from his home into her household. After some time, several years later, the dog Bobby suddenly appeared on G's property. Bobby focused his gaze upon his former master, G. He asked the pup if he wanted something to eat. No, indicated Bobby. Then Bobby turned away, returned to the abductor's house, and died. So it's another case of a last goodbye, but this involves actually visiting someone to say goodbye. Then the last rally, where there's a surge of energy before dying. Here's an example. My little dog Daisy, a Pembroke Corgi, was suffering from terminal cancer and had deteriorated for several days to the point that she could not walk or stand. But on her final day, she brightened and followed me everywhere for an hour before passing. It was as if she knew the time was at hand, and she wanted to be as close to me as possible when she passed. And this is quite common. Here's a story from a vet who puts animals down. In my practice as a vet, experiencing the last rally in dogs isn't uncommon. It happened a number of times that when I rang the bell of a house I was called to in order to put a dog down, a vital and barking canine greeted me and jumped around me. I was surprised already more than once that when I asked its owners where the sick dog was, the one I was supposed to put down, they informed me that this seemingly vital animal would be the moribund dog in question. So vets notice this kind of thing, and if one were doing further studies, it would be a very good idea to interview a lot of vets, because they're often present or called to people's houses or when animals are dying. Retreating into solitude is, I think, a very interesting phenomenon, and here's an example of that. We had a collie, and in the final months and weeks, it was just lying passively on the floor without energy. Then one day, it came running to each family member to greet us, jumping up like in joy, etc. Then it took off to the woods, where it chose to die in solitude. We found it later the same day. Without a doubt, it knew that the time had come to say goodbye. So again, there's the theme of saying goodbye, as well as retreating into solitude. And then just one final example of a clarity, a terminal clarity in a dying animal. This is like terminal lucidity in humans, but of course we can't look at animals' memory recovery in the way we can with humans. But here, my cat Cleo was dying, and I was sitting with her. She was nearly comatose, not moving, her eyes glazed over, unseeing. Her legs were very cold. This state had been progressing upon her for days, and because of the coldness of her legs, I felt it might be very close. But when I was just sitting there, mostly not even really petting her, suddenly she woke up. She put her paw upon my hand and gazed into my eyes with intensity. She was saying goodbye to me. That was perfectly clear. Within an hour she had passed. So again, there's the theme of saying goodbye, but here's a kind of brief terminal lucidity, a clarity, a recovery of consciousness, and knowing what's going on just before dying. Well, there are many, many stories in our collection. We've put the entire collection online, so anyone who's interested can look at them. And we summarize the conclusion with many examples in this paper. This is also online. It's open access, free to view. And you can find it on my website under the research section in the top menu bar. The website is sheldrake.org. And the paper again is called Experiences of Dying Animals, Parallels with End-of-Life Experiences in Humans.